Your journey has been an interesting one up to here. You've questioned so much more than those around you. You've even questioned yourself as to how you could have grown into these thoughts. Am I crazy? When did I begin to think differently? Why do people in general appear so limited in their fun?
Hey there, Spiritual Dope. I am on here today with Deb Lambert of the Lambert Love Method. We met through a mutual friend of ours, Deb Levine, who has been on the podcast before, and super excited to have you on here today. A little bit about Deb is that she is certified spiritual director, certified Reiki master teacher, certified sound healer, trained in spiritual healing, currently, a mother of some, children trying to make it through college. So you're on the back end of that, right? And you're the owner of Reflecting the Light in Scottsdale, Arizona, where you're offering the services that relate to your certification. So super excited to have you on here today.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah. So I usually like to start these off with the whole idea that, you and I we're just kind of vessels for spiritual energy, or just energy in general that's coming through us, right? And the communication that we have on here today is going to be for somebody who's tuning into the podcast, just to, basically looking for their next spiritual fix, whatever that is. And, there's a message that can really only be delivered through you today to that person. What's the message that you're feeling today?
Yeah, that anyone can be healed. Anyone can be healed. You just have to be open to it.
Yeah, I mean, and so what's that look like?
I think it's different for each person. I think it depends. Is it mind, body, true self, soul? Is it, personal relationships? Healing comes in so many different formats, and there's not one fix all for it all. And so it's that if you're really wanting to heal something, it can be healed. It is possible. And so for some people, it is finding peace. It starts with peace, right? Inner peace, peace within. And how do we get there comes from different modalities. Some people like TM, transcendental meditation, where you're repeating for 20 minutes twice a day a certain mantra. Sometimes for people, it is more Christian and contemplation meditation, where you're repeating a word over and over again to get to that peace, because healing begins actually with peace. We have to start there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, I can see that. You got to get to some kind of peace so that you can reflect appropriately, right? I mean, so that I guess, right? So it looks like there's some stability. What's the whole concept is, you look at the pool, and if you throw something in there that ripples, and you can't really tell what's going on. So once you kind of find some peace, you're able to maybe focus on yourself and maybe what needs to be healed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, for people, like transcendental and contemplation helps them, because the chattering in the mind, all that go, 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 go. And so just by repeating over and over again, you just silence that. And so it's that shh. And then it's like, okay, what do I need to work on? What do I need to look at in my life? Yeah, it's definitely.
Sure. Well, one of the things I'm super excited about having you on for is the sound healing, right? Yeah. And kind of the energy, right? I know that you posted a bunch of books earlier this year on Instagram, and I was like, those all look like really great ones. Like, if I look back behind me, I picked up a bunch of books this year myself, and dug into it. But like, what's drawing you to do energy and energy work, and then I guess like beyond that, what got you involved, like the sound healing? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, I love that. So I actually have a background in medicine. I was once a first assistant in the operating room, and my husband happens to be an anesthesiologist. So medicine and actually what is going on in the body has always fascinated me. And so when I was thinking about music that I love, like when I'm called to a certain song and I'm like, wow, this like really moves me, or this brings me peace, or this is actually disruptive and it's causing me to be angry. It's like, what is it about music alone? It's like that moves us in a certain way. And I was thinking about how sometimes in the operating room, when we put people to sleep, we would have music in the background and people would react to that immediately, and it would help them actually to get to sleep. And it was that countdown, but then it's like you have something soft going on in the background. But when people, like, let's say, didn't like country music and country music was playing, they were irritated. And so like, can you please shut that off? And so I was like, whoa, this really is triggering them. And you can see actually the different EKGs, like things going off on the monitors and what's happening for them. And so all my 20-something years in the whole medical world and sound really has always been important to me. But a couple of years ago, I was in the middle of a meditation and I had heard it's time to do sound training, like train in it. And so actually that ties into Deb Levine because I had heard Deb to join as well. And so when I texted her, I'm like, you have to do this with me. She's like, no, I'm just a medium intuitive. I'm like, no, Deb, you're a healer as well. And so I'm like, take the sound. And so she said no 3 times. And then there was this flash sale and she was like, okay, I'll go. And so she took it with me. And it was just amazing how much we learned from sound healing. And the books you're talking about, one is called Sound Medicine. And she talks about, as a neurologist trained in Southern California, how, of course, MRIs are sound medicine, right? We limit sound medicine from what medicine really is. And sound healing, then, what if we could take something like a cell that has cancer in it and find the vibrational frequency of the sheath, the shell of the cell, and turn it back on itself. And so the 2 cells then can kill each other off versus taking radiation, versus taking chemotherapy and killing all these healthy cells. So that to me has just been a brilliant book for me to like even process, because I think it is possible to take sound medicine and make it into sound healing besides an instrument, but instruments as well are incredible.
No, I love that. I always think about even, just supersonic, when you, what is it? When you clean like clavicles, or I don't know what the tools are, right? But like when they put them in and it's like boom, and just kind of, it just shakes them enough to knock off like whatever's on there, right? And to your point, being able to find specific frequencies to say, hey, I'm the frequency of, bust up the bad cells.
Yeah.
Right.
It's quite incredible.
Yeah. No, I think that's really cool. So you kind of followed, your intuition into that, right? You've got this field of, medical understanding, and, you've always been, kind of curious about it. And then you say, all right, I'm going to step into it. We're going in, we're going to do it. What were some of the things that you found, with the sound healing on yourself, and then, kind of using it on others? So
when I combine it with Reiki, we have these sacred symbols and kanji. So kanji is actually a Japanese word. And I apply them with sound by like chanting them. And I was noticing that on myself, like when I would chant, like one of them is actually called Chokure. So when I would say Chokure, it would be like a 3-time thing. Chokure, Chokure. But then it started becoming a song. Chokure, Chokure. And I could actually feel the energy then like leaving my body quicker than just thinking it in my head. When I would actually make the power of my voice say it, I could feel it vibrating through me. And I think about when we use the power of our voice to even say words like love and hate. It brings me to one of my posts that I had of the book. It's called The Hidden Messages of Water. And it's from a biologist in Japan, where he literally learned that when we say words like I love you, I love you, I love you, people literally feel their body reacts. Cells actually react on a petri dish to, or the water vibrations of our bodies react to the I love yous. And the same thing goes for I hate you. So when we use a sacred symbol like Chokure, it is amazing that with tones and everything through the body, it helps let go, I believe, of things that we're holding on to vibrationally.
Look, I love that's Dr. Emoto or whatever, right? So I'll share with you, since we're on that topic, I fully believe and agree, right, with what you're talking about. And I said, all right, well, what about like the water that I drink, right? What's the vibration of that water? Where has it been? And well, I don't know. all my tuning forks are kind of packed away right now. But I set up a station for my bottled water where I just played like 528 hertz to my water.
Yeah.
So that then when I drank my water, I'm drinking like this energetically purified, healed water.
Yep.
Right. I felt better. I mean, even if it's just the idea of it and whatever. So, I love, I'm in agreement, right? That this kind of this vibration stuff. So, that's a great concept, and you were feeling the energy leaving your body, or you were feeling the energy more in your body when you get this, when you're adding, I guess, tones, intonations, or you're chanting, right? Now, what about your clients, and like what kind of like sound energy you're using with them?
So that's really great. So I have a variety of instruments, but what I'm noticing with children specifically, Asperger's, Dharma drums, those tongued metal drums, if they can play it, it's sort of empowering them. They might not know what the instruments are, but they're like dun dun dun, the different tones. And I just have a silly thing that happened that I was giving Reiki to this mother, and I had heard the way I hear, clairaudient, that I was to give her the drum for her son to gift it. And I was like, wait, this drum costs more than the Reiki session. And they're like, yeah, it doesn't matter, Deb, you're just going to give it. And so I gave it to her. And that night her son was having, I don't want to use the word tantrum, but sort of high energy excitement. And she placed it in the center of the room, and he just grabbed the sticks and started doing it. And it was just like this incredible, peaceful thing. And she's like, out of all the things we've ever tried, who would have thought an instrument? But in my office, again, like I do alchemy bowls, those crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls, the bronze full moon bowls from chimes. And so certain people react accordingly to their own connection to sound. And so some people like the gong better than the alchemy crystal bowls. And actually some people react. And so gongs, supposedly the metal bowls and instruments are earthbound. They're supposed to be best for nerves, for like diabetics with neuropathy, versus alchemy can be irritating to the nerves. But actually I have clients that have neuropathy and they love the crystal bowl. So this is, again, not a one fits all kind of thing. I had some people that had paid for a sound healing with Reiki and thought it was kind of bullshit. And the one woman had these eye masks on, and all of a sudden I hear out loud, like, holy shit, I'm seeing colors. I was like, oh, well, there you go. So she's like, I was kind of thinking I was paying for some bullshit. And she's like, this is amazing. So I laugh that anything is possible when you're just kind of open.
No. 100%. So, one of my experiences, right, with the tuning forks and the sound, with the sound, and that's why, of course, I went out and had to go get the tuning forks myself. I laid down there and I had the experience of like just kind of, you always see the Taurus energy field, right?
Yep.
I was seeing that like after my session, and it was like all in alignment and in my mind, like, and it wasn't like, hey, I set this up or anything like that. I was like, all right, I'm in, right? I'm in, and and it's super cool. But I mean, what would you liken the experience to, or somebody that's never tried it and they're like, I don't know, Deb, why should I be trying, some of this sound energy healing, what are some people saying, and what do you tell them when they first come up to you?
For me, it's always like, don't knock it till you try it with anything in life. We're so judgmental as beings. We just are. We judge even when we think we're not judging. And so I tell people, it's best to go blindfolded into something and have a leap of faith and just give it a go. Like, what is the worst thing that could happen? When people hear like these incredible things, like some people astral project, right? Their soul leaves their body and travels, or they do see colors or images, or their loved ones come in and sound healing. Well, none of that's guaranteed. And sometimes for people is, what if it just brings you peace? What if that's it? What if that's what you get? Is that so bad to come in for 1 hour? And typically, no matter where you live, there's groups for $20. You can go and lay there. You lay on a yoga mat and you're just sort of receiving and just being open to anything's possible. And I think, why the hell not, right? Just go for it.
Yeah, no, look, 100%, right? 100%. I am, I'm the throw caution to the wind kind of guy,
Yeah.
myself, right? But, I think that, I guess that since my experiences have been, every one of them's kind of been like, oh, wow, this shit really works, right?
Yeah.
Yay for me. And, for the naysayer, and I guess, has it been your experience where the naysayer comes in, nothing happens for them? Is it can it be blocked by belief?
Oh, for sure. 100%. Because it is like in the Eastern medicine, right? They have nadis and meridians, and we have these energy channels going through us. And so it's like all of a sudden, if you're blocked, literally, you're blocking the flow of the things for us to receive. And that's why it does become, it's sort of like going to an intuitive or psychic. When you're like, oh, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to work, it becomes more of a struggle for the reader because they are going against all kinds of obstacles versus could you just be open to trying it? And, seeing is believing, and it needs to be experienced. And with more and more research being done, especially you mentioned 528 hertz, it is biologically from biologists being studied for DNA repair. And so they've got research labs right around the world with it. I mean, it's phenomenal that 528 in particular is being measured. And so, that can be done with different instruments and different things. And it's like, if that's being under research, like, why not try to sit there with a gong? And it doesn't need to be, it can be as woo-woo as you want it to be. Like, I want to talk about my angels and my guides and my loved ones. Or it could be like, I just want peace. I just want to feel perhaps some music, some sound, something to move me. And, for people in my office that have come that were blocked, they might not experience anything, but that's also them crying. And I'm like, well, that is an experience. It somehow moved you. Like whether you're like, well, I didn't see anything. You're crying. You're feeling something.
Right. I mean, look, it's an energy release, right? If you're
Right.
coming out of there crying, that's an energy release. I actually had one person reach out to me, and she'd mentioned that she wanted to be able to cry again because it's been held in for so long that she hasn't cried for so long. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can help, but feel free to show up, right? With the energy or with the breath work that I've been doing for myself and with others, and having these people come out of there and be like, wow, or coming out of there crying or some type of release. It's super powerful to be able to just facilitate that for others.
Yeah.
So, I mean, give me some examples of, just some of the types of clients that you're getting, some of the things that maybe, I think that the one with the musical instrument was super cool. But, like, what's something else that somebody might be coming in for? They tried everything else, and it wasn't until they did some energy work with you that they got cleared it.
Oh, that's a good question. So I once had a young boy, he was 9 years old, that had stomach issues of projectile vomiting. It was going into almost 18 months of it. And the family had flown all over the world to doctors in Switzerland and France and Germany, Canada. And they happened to be seeing a psychiatrist because, like, he's been scoped so many times, they can't seem to figure out what's going on. And the psychiatrist, like, what do you think about energy work? And they're like, I don't know, maybe. And like, well, I know someone. If you trust me, please trust her. And they came to me, and the first session, the mother was rolling her eyes, and she's like, I'm like, you don't believe in this? She's like, no. I'm like, well, it's not up for you to believe in it. It's just to experience it. And as soon as I laid hands on this little boy, I literally could see the woods, and I could see him. And it was the first time I'd actually had a client see what I could see at the current time, like timeline. Like, oh my gosh, I'm like, we could see these certain experiences. And then that session ended. The mother was like, what was that all about? And I'm like, I don't know. I just could see what he was seeing, and he could see what I was seeing. And at one point I'd heard he knows who you are. He can see who you are. And so I said, do you see who I am? And he goes, uh-huh. And he goes, you're the white bird with the rays. And a long time ago, a psychic had told me I had a connection with the Holy Spirit. and they happen to be a Jewish family, and the mom's like a white bird with rays. I'm like, oh, it's just something that Christians say is the Holy Spirit. It's just a connection. And he's like, yeah, Mama, she's the white bird with the rays. And yeah, it was just kind of funny thing. But the part about his health was 3 sessions that he was totally healthy again. Like no stomach. So three. So he did have to come back, and the mother's like, well, he swears that he saw the waterfall and the this and that, the way you said he did. And he did see you as a white bird with rays. And I'm like, well, come back again. And then she's like, I'm actually seeing him getting better. So that was kind of a cool thing. And that was 4 years ago. And I know the family still to this day.
Yeah, that's super powerful, right? Yeah. So I mean, just I love the whole, syncing like experiences, kind of like it's like a movie, right? Like yeah, where, like where they reach out and they touch each other and they both see like what's going on, like, and they stop it. That's crazy. And then yeah, to be able to have that kind of effect on something where these people have been traveling around the globe, right? Dropping, no doubt, all kinds of money on travel, and totally ignoring the possibilities of energy healing.
Absolutely. And I know people that are doubters and don't believe. It was interesting because there is a belief that chakras spin. If you're thinking about your own body, your head is the 12, your left hand is the 3, your feet's the 6, the right hand's the 9. So 12, 3, 6, 9. So the orb rotates that way, the chakras. And so for this little boy, I asked him to use his hand like a pendulum, like on his belly, which way? And he was going backwards. And that's actually a sign of anxiety and why he'd be vomiting, because it kicks the energy up. So as he's rubbing his belly, he's actually going 12, 9, 6, 3. And so it was this interesting thing. Immediately before I laid hands on him, I was just watching what he felt. The energy was, I'm like, no, correct it. So his homework assignment was from the week to week that I saw him was to rub his belly and to help the energy go that way. And when mothers and fathers hold their babies, they rub the belly. Actually, 12, 3, 6, 9 almost always feel, yeah, think about it. Like when you're one day rubbing.
That's way cool, right? So I mean, it sounds like it wasn't just, it's a big part of it's kind of lay on hands, getting the connection, understanding, kind of where his energy's at, and being like, all right, well, this is my version of take 2 and call me in the morning, right?
Exactly.
And well, I mean, because you gave him a prescription.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I always think is a challenge is, when you started into this space, it sounds like you're in a pretty traditional family going like the medical route, right? Yeah. And then you're like, hey, by the way, what I'm really thinking about doing is we're going to need office space. I'm going to need some crystal bowls. And look, I'm going to need that gong over here. And then like, I'm sure your husband's like, that sounds great, right? But like, then like it really boils down to what's your plan with this stuff, and like you start to share it, and maybe with the kids. Tell me a little bit about like kind of what that road's been like for you to share, and starting it up for yourself.
Sure. So as a child, I actually would see and hear spirit, clairaudient, clairvoyant, maybe up to the age of 3 or 4. And when I was 15, I had a very profound experience. And then when I was 21, and then they shut down by choice. I shut down my hearing, seeing. And I told my husband when I met him, like, I used to do this a lot when I was a kid, and I would know things. I could actually know the future events. And I know that sounds weird, but it is true. And as I take pride in who my husband is, he graduated top of his medical school. He went to UCSF for anesthesia, and then he applied for neurosurgery, got in, chose to stick with anesthesia, not be a neurosurgeon, so he's not an idiot. So about 11 years ago, I had a voice again coming to me in the middle of the night and just saying to me different messages, and one of them ended up being that I was going to go to this place called Swiha and do Reiki training. And I didn't even know what Swiha was, and the voice said, ask Rich. And so I said, hey, what's Swiha? And he's like, you mean the Southwest Institution of Healing Arts? I'm like, wait, it's really an acronym for something? He goes, grab your computer. It's 3 a.m. I'm typing in Swiha. And I'm like, holy cow. I'm like, I don't really know why I'm going. And so, but leading up to that, it was sort of like my husband needed to start trusting, because I woke him up one night saying, hey, do you hear that? Someone's calling my name. And he's like, what? He goes, oh my gosh, do you have headaches? Have you been dizzy? I'm like, idiot, it's not like an aneurysm or tumor. This used to happen as a kid. And he's just like, oh, I remember you telling me about this. But he's like, we've been together for so many years. Like, I didn't know this was real. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, so you don't hear it? And he's like, no. He's like, just go back to bed, Deb. And I'm like, okay. But it led up to 9 months later where the voice finally woke me up in the middle of the night and said, the lava's flowing the wrong way on the Big Island and they're going to evacuate a town for the first time in history. I'm like, what? He's like, say it out loud. I'm like, well, shit, my husband's asleep. He's like, say it out loud. So I'm saying it out loud and my husband wakes up. He's like, is it that voice again? I'm like, yeah. He goes, what's he telling you? He's telling me that somehow the lava's flowing the wrong way, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the next morning, I'm making omelets and my youngest son, I hear him say, hey, Dad, where's SpongeBob? And on our Phoenix cable, CNN to Nickelodeon's only one number away, and he happened to hit the number. So it's now on CNN. And on the screen, it said, breaking news, lava flowing wrong way on the Big Island, evacuating. My husband's face was white, and he's like, what the F? And he was just, I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I do not know. But I'm like, he's like, who are you, Deb? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, this is so strange. And then it led to these series of events that he started trusting when I could see things in the future. And he was like, this is just incredible. And so it led me to Sweehaw, which led me to Reiki.
Deb, real quick, the first question everybody's going to say is, well, what about lottery numbers? I mean, come on. Right? You know that's the first thing that comes out.
So it is funny because I have tried it, but that's me forcing versus it just naturally coming. It's one thing when it just is so pure and so like authentic is the word I want to say versus I wish the lottery number, sure, why not? But it's not the way it works for me. But I do tell you, I do have someone that I actually knew a stock that she had to sell before a Monday morning. And she did, and it saved her like a little more than $500,000 in the stock. And so I was like, isn't that it? I'm like, why would that affect it? But it's because what she's doing with that money is actually helping others. So it's not just for her to grow wealth. She's actually choosing to do it with charity work. The money, I think, I mean, that's my own judgment on it. But I typically don't have, financial advice for anyone for just selfish reasons. It's like, well, what are you going to do with it? But yeah, I love that.
For sure. I think that kind of what you're saying is super true, right? The moment we kind of put our own like demands or our self before like these the good or the betterment or for all, or like, what, it'd be really cool if I could tame this river, right? And but it just doesn't work, and maybe not to the benefit that you think that it might, even if like you do have some kind of control over it. I'm not sure if you're a fan of like fantasy novels or the Wheel of Time series that they just redid. Yeah. So they talk about that, and in that series, a big, the connection to the magic is connection to source, right? Yeah. And like how, like, somebody on the men's side like tainted that source somehow. So I think it's a really good just kind of imagery on kind of what this is, right? Kind of what you're saying is like the moment you taint it, it's just kind of like it can drive you mad or like just doesn't work out properly. So, and how this person that's going to use their money that they made, the money was to go to a good cause and purpose and a good reason, then that's kind of why it worked out, right?
Absolutely.
And you can see it any way you want, right? And I love being able to see it that way because that's your choice. So, sorry to interrupt on that. But so your husband's starting to trust you. He's like, okay, it's not freaky at all. And, right. And so you start making progress, and you're having the conversations, let's kind of, I guess, get to the point where you're like, we're going to start doing this for a living.
So what happened actually was I was getting people to come to our home, and we lived in a guard-gated community, and it was getting to be a lot of people. Like, I'm talking just probably under 200 people in 2 years for free, just coming to our home, and our guard would be like, Maria's here, da-da-da's here. I'm like, oh yeah, they're my friends. Just come on in. And they're like, what is happening here? And finally, my husband and children sat me down and like, this is not okay. Like, our home is not a circus. And so I'm like, I respect it. So he's like, my husband's like, you have two choices. One is to quit, or one is to open a business. And literally probably within 30 seconds, I was like, then I'm going to quit. And so I just decided, honestly, that I would not do it because I was happy being a doctor's wife and a mom of these two amazing kids. And I've lived a good life. My husband only works 26 weeks a year. And the other 26 weeks, we get to be together, go to the gym together, cook together, hang out together. And I'm like, why would I want to mess this up? Until then, I got a phone call the very next day that a teacher from my kid's school was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer at the age of 28 or 29. And they're like, she needs help. And so I was like, okay, you guys, I know I said I'd quit, but this is da-da-da. Would that be okay? And my husband, of course, the kids are like, yes. So she came in, and then the next day she called me and she's like, I don't know if it was Reiki or what you said to me, but you changed my life. And she's like, I'm going to get double mastectomies and I'm going to start radiation, because she was thinking about not getting treatment at all. And so I'm like, well, I don't know what it was, nor do I need to know what it was, but I'm just glad that you're going to choose to fight for your life, more importantly, because you have so many more years to live. And then the very next day, I was at a speech and debate banquet for speech and debate, and I was sitting next to a doctor, a general practitioner here. And she's like, oh my gosh, Deb, it's been so rough lately. I've had 17 people diagnosed with cancer. And I was like, oh, that's so strange. I was just doing Reiki on someone yesterday. And she's like, wait, you do Reiki? I'm like, yes. She's like, where are your business cards? I'm like, oh, I don't do it like that. She's like, well, I can't send you my patients unless you have a business. So I was like, yeah, no, I'm not. Thank you so much, but I'm not going to do it. And then the next morning, so 3 days in a row, a friend of mine who's an OBGYN called me. She's like, when are you going to open a business? I was like, fine. So it was like kind of all just came together, and I was like, all right, I'll just do it.
No, that's cool. First of all, I think it's like, super cool that you've got a supportive family, right? That's like, hey, listen, this is just what you do, yeah. Right? We get it. That's what you do. And then, yeah, I know that if I tried to say, hey, we're going to run 200 people through our house, that just wouldn't work, right? So I mean, and it's look, it makes sense to set the boundaries, right, for the family, and like
totally.
There's a bunch of people nobody knows, right? And they're coming to get energy work, so they gotta be wacky, right?
Why not? Sure.
we can't trust them, and so and they're like, hey, go ahead and just set up a business. So it's not like a lot of people, I think, have a big fear of stepping into that space and trying to do it on their own. This was just kind of presented, laid at your feet. You're like, yeah. First of all, you're like, no. You're like, all right, cool. I choose family, and that's awesome, right? Yeah. But it's like the universe was like, no, we're not going away, right? I always think of the hero's journey, right? And the calling, right? There's the calling, and it's like you can ignore it as much as you want, like you did in your 20s, right? Like there's the calling in the 20s. You're like, I'm not really, this isn't my time. But it's like, and it came back, and it comes back kind of louder, and it's like, listen, we're back, and it's like, right, and then it's like, all right, well, you're also at this kind of point where, you know that it's real and it's something that you should be doing, right? Like there's everything's like, this is where you got it. This is where you should be, right? So I think it's a cool story, and you're following along the journey, and you're able to help all these people. So what's next for you in the Lambert Love Method? Tell me what's going on.
Yeah, no, I decided to break away from reflecting the light Reiki, because reflecting the light Reiki is my business that I do all these modalities. But Lambert Love Method, I thought I really want people to have free resources and of the things that I read. And it's like, a much smaller Oprah Winfrey, a very much like tiny little speck in the world. But it's that sort of thing. Like I have time to read. And so I read a lot. I love to read. I love to meditate. So all of the things that I go through and experience and I put on Lambert Love Method. So the website's www.deblambert.love. And it's just free resources for people. I have like 6 meditations of sound on there. So people just put headphones on and just give it a try. Like that would be an easy way to try sound healing. If they want book recommendations to Insight Timer. I'm a big Insight Timer person because it's free. And it has 130,000 meditations right now. So for some people starting off, They want to understand that balancing the spiritual, the right side of the brain, and the logical side, the left and right, binaural, by putting headphones on and listening to the sides of the brain to balance, is an amazing sound healing modality through alpha, theta, delta waves. They actually can help. So sound comes in all kinds of forms. So where I'm kind of going with this now is I'm actually working on 2 books right now, a children's book and a book that is about seeing things through my lenses. And not that it's right or wrong, but it's just Deb Lambert's lenses. And I think in life, we read a lot of books that you should do this or you should feel this way. This is just me saying, hey, this is my experience. This is just the way I see it. Not right, not wrong, just Deb Lambert. So, yeah.
Seeing things kind of as they are, right?
Yeah.
No, I think that's super cool. So who, if you had an ideal client, who would that be?
One that does the work is the ideal client. One that is open.
Amen, right? Yeah. Right.
One that actually is open and that is honestly willing to evolve, grow in some sort of way. I mean, I'm talking about moving mountains here, but I am saying, like, if you're here, it's like, make your time valuable, because time is so precious. And so it's like, respect your time. Respect that when you spend an hour and a half with me or 2 hours with me, that is you honoring yourself enough to come and be present and do the work. When I say, for some clients, to be honest, I've lost because they don't like that I give book recommendations and I give meditations. And when I get readings from, honestly, psychics around the world, they call me a Rolodex. It's a common word, a Rolodex of information. I just store a lot of information from a lot of things that I experience. And so I've got names and references and reference points. And it's like, oh, if you want to travel, do this if you're in Spain, or do that. Like, I just have a lot of experience with different things. And so for some of my clients, unfortunately, that are like, I don't want to do it. I'm like, that's totally fine. It's a choice. So again, it's all a choice. And so definitely the ideal is one that's like, I'm here. I value my time. I value your time. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to do the homework when I'm not seeing you. And, that's kind of where I'm at.
No, 100%. It doesn't make any sense to work with somebody that doesn't want to work, because that's not going to work. So that's not going to work. I can't do, what's the line? I can't do your push-ups for you. So what kind of, this person that wants to do the work, what are they working on? Is this like a spiritual transformation? Is this healing? Is this mindset? What would you say that somebody's coming to you to work on primarily?
I have such a variety of clients, honestly, and I love the fact that sometimes there is just there's always a flow. I either have a lot of children in their early teenage years, or I have a lot of adults that are CEOs and need some sort of relief from the chatter in their minds. One week in particular is very hard for me was in January. I had 5 abused women from their husbands, physically and verbally abusing them. It was just a very painful week. And so for all of them, they have just so much trauma to the mind and to the body, literally, that they're shaking in my office. And so it's just a release of energy. And like, where do we begin there? And, it's that self-love. And some actually have chosen to stay. And some of those women, now that's April or nearly April, March, they are choosing to leave. So it's interesting that Reiki, and when we learn self-love, learning energy work, you don't think like you come in and you're like, I was just guided to come to you because I heard that you just hold space really well and you're so kind, and people leave feeling at peace. Like, that's why I'm here, versus I can't solve their issues. And usually I have a referral of psychiatrists here in the Valley or therapists that I refer to. And I'm like, you need to do that. And like, to me, this is second. You need to do that first. Like, you do that and we can work well together. But I always respect Western medicine. I just really think it's important that we respect them both and we balance out Eastern and Western. So, yeah. No,
100%. So, I mean, it just sounds like you're open to people who are kind of on their journey, right? Yeah. People that may, may be like once or twice into the door, and or people that are kind of working through some deeper levels, and again, like kind of using these different healing modalities, these energy, and coupling it with Western, right? Like Western, they both have their place, right? But I think at the very beginning, you'd mentioned 20 minutes of peace, and like, what's that worth? And what's that worth to somebody that's had zero? Right. It's kind of like priceless, being able to experience that and understand that I had no idea that this space was available.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I think for sure that people learn, that is just like, honestly, like I had a gentleman, a CEO of a very well-known company, and he had a traumatic event happen to him. And it's been 1.5 years of not being able to shut the mind down. And he's had to step away from a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so it becomes this thing of, can I quiet the mind? And when he left my office, he's like, this is the first time in 1.5 years I feel at peace. So again, but he had to be open enough to do that, right? To try this. It is, outside the box.
Yeah, I think look, I think that you and I, like, once you're in this space, you see it everywhere, right? Totally. But I still feel like it's growing by leaps and bounds at this point, though. Not really sure. I think that the internet, I think the pandemic, forced it, a lot of it, right, to grow kind of almost inorganically through, organically through the nature of a worldwide pandemic, but amplified because this, what we're doing right now, being able to connect. You're in Arizona, I'm in Pennsylvania, being able to connect with somebody in a time of need and finding that these are actually this type of healing, this type of work is actually helpful. And especially again, while the world's in such a awkward state, right? It's like a awkward teen stage.
Yeah.
So Deb, I have a couple questions I always like to ask, and like I said in the beginning, this is kind of like a spiritual speed dating show, right? Like somebody's tuning in and they're trying to get like their spiritual fix. Like, is Deb right for me? So spiritual bachelorette number 1, since we're on the topic, how does one obtain true peace?
Number 1 is that you have to be willing to accept the things that are coming towards you. It is, it's not like, let's see, I'm getting all this like downloads I'm actually hearing right now, so I'm just being honest. So how do we obtain peace? Because I'm trying to simplify what the chatter that I'm hearing. And it is, it really comes down to sometimes we must begin with the simple things like our heartbeat. Like if we're like listening to the chatter of all that it is, it's just the mind. So sometimes for people, it is that inner peace. It is with desire, right? We end up getting, a flow of energy that is disruptive to the force. Desire is one of those things that lead us there. So if we can try to eliminate desire, what our outcome is to certain things, then we can find more of a state of peace. But really, to me, it's like what I'm leading to tell people to begin with is even using your own heartbeat or breath. You'd mentioned breath work, but like to begin, we have to begin somewhere, and the first place is silence. If that helps.
Love it. I love it, for sure. It's going to help somebody.
It's going
to help somebody. That's right. This is also another good one for you, especially, given your chosen fields. What is the relationship between science and religion? I would say even like it doesn't have to be science and religion, it's science and spirituality.
Yeah. I mean, there is such a huge correlation. Like, I love that my oldest son goes to Columbia. And we all laughed because, it's like the year he applied, it was like 68,000 kids and only 730 got in because of the COVID. And, and he did his application in 3 hours. And so he's like this brainiac and he's just so proud. He's like, it was the last school I applied to. And it's like, yeah, so what? It's number 2 ranked. It's like, whatever. But it's like, so he's that science. He really is. But yet there's this part of him that can meditate. And that spiritual part, it's like it is pulling the left and the right brain and kind of meeting center. And so in everything, in quantum physics, they have terms, God theory. Like, it's so ironic that something that is so science driven has terms like God in them. And so they're so interwoven, honestly, more than we even know. I'm not saying that, I'm not here to tell you there is a God. But it is interesting that there are words in the science world that we refer to it, right? There's another one that's in space, they call it. My son was telling me about it. I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Like, I forget the one about the space, but there's another one with God. But even airplanes, like when you're having weather problems, they're like, oh, they call it something God. I forget the terminology now, but it's basically that it's like God's will that the plane can't take off because it's snowing or something silly. So it's like we use these terminologies all the time with spirituality, and they just really are. When we think of the atomic level, right? The atoms, what is our soul? If we believe we have a soul, it's energy, right? And what do we say an atom is inside the atom? It's all energy. So even that, from the atomic level, we are energy. Like even our bodies, like if we just want to say we just have a body, not even a soul, if that's all we believe, it's like, wow, well, we're literally walking energy.
That's it. Yeah, no, 100% couldn't agree more. I know that I'm a fan of Bob Proctor, and he would always talk about, we're just energy, right? And sometimes I'll feel like I'm tired or maybe I'm worn out. I'm like, wow, that doesn't even make any sense because I'm just energy. Right? Like, I mean, honestly, and like, so it doesn't make any sense. I'm a Mr. Fusion, right? Yeah. Because that's all we do is we convert and stuff into energy. So where can someone go find out more about you? Where should we send people to connect with you?
Oh, let's see. I think you should check out my website, the new one that's got free resources. It's www.deblambert.love. And try out some sound for yourself. I mean, I think there's 6, and I'll keep posting some new ones, some longer ones. Some people's complaints, it's only 6 minutes, Deb. And I'm like, right, because it's like get a taste of it to see if you like it. Right. And
this is a sample platter.
This is the sample.
Right on. Right on. Well, Deb, thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Take care.
Really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Spiritual Dope Podcast. Stay connected with us directly through spiritualdope.co. You can also join the discussion on Facebook, Spiritual Dope, and Instagram at spiritual_dope. If you would like to speak with us, send us an email through brandon@spiritualdope.co. And as always, thank you for cultivating your mindset and creating a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking part of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay fully up to date. Until next time, be kind to yourself and trust your intuition.